Sarah Williams had always dreamed of becoming a mother, but after years of trying, the doctors had given her the cruelest news: she was infertile. She and her husband, Mark, had spent thousands on treatments, endured heartbreaking losses, and finally, they had accepted the painful truth: they would never have a child of their own. When Sarah started feeling unusual stomach pains, she never suspected pregnancy. It wasn't possible. Instead, the pain grew worse, and her belly began swelling at an alarming rate. Within months, she looked 9 months pregnant, except she wasn't supposed to be able to conceive at all. At first, the doctors believed it was a tumor, a dangerous mass growing inside her. The ultrasound scans were blurry, confusing, and contradictory. Sometimes, they showed a solid mass. Other times, they detected movement, but it was nothing like a normal fetus. Sarah, Dr. Emily Carter had told her gently, "We need to prepare you for the worst. This could be cancer. It's growing too fast." Sarah clutched Mark's hand, terror in her eyes. "But I feel something. Like it's alive." Dr. Carter hesitated. "We don't know what it is yet, but we need to operate before it's too late." That night, Sarah lay in her hospital bed, cradling her swollen stomach, whispering to whatever was inside her. It didn't feel like a tumor. It felt real. It moved, it reacted to her touch. And then, something happened that made her scream. A handprint pushed against her stomach from the inside. Mark bolted awake, rushing to her side. "Sarah, what's wrong?" She gasped for breath, lifting her hospital gown. It touched me." Mark stared in horror as another tiny handprint pressed against her skin, stretching her belly in a way that was anything but normal. The shape of it wasn't right. The fingers were too long, too thin. It wasn't a normal baby. The nurses came running as Sarah clutched her stomach in agony. The monitors beeped wildly. Dr. Carter rushed in, her face pale. "We need to operate. Now." The last thing Sarah remembered was the mask being placed over her face as she was wheeled into the emergency operating room. And when she woke up, the room was silent. Her first thought was of her baby. Where is my baby?" she whispered. Mark was sitting beside her, his hands shaking. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Doctor Carter took a deep breath. "Sarah, it wasn't a tumor." Sarah's heart pounded. She turned her head and froze. Wrapped in a blanket in the nurse's arms was a tiny figure. A baby. But not just any baby, because her child was not entirely human. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain ran through her abdomen. She had just undergone surgery, but she didn't care. She needed to see her baby. But when the nurse hesitated, clutching the tiny bundle tightly, Sarah's heart pounded in terror. "Give me my baby," she demanded, her voice shaky. Doctor Carter stepped forward, her face pale and unreadable. "Sarah, I need you to stay calm," she said softly. "Your child, it's not like any baby we've ever seen." Sarah felt the world tilt. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Mark's eyes were red, his hands trembling. "Sarah, you need to prepare yourself." He motioned to the nurse, who, after a long pause, finally stepped forward and lowered the blanket just enough for Sarah to see. Sarah let out a strangled gasp. The baby was small, fragile-looking, but its skin, it was translucent. Almost as if it wasn't fully human. Veins pulsed beneath the surface, glowing faintly blue. Its tiny fingers were longer than normal, with sharp, almost claw-like nails. But the worst part, the part that made Sarah feel like she was losing her mind, was its eyes. The baby opened them, and Sarah nearly screamed. Its pupils were pitch black, bottomless, endless voids that seemed to swallow the light. The room was silent, except for the sound of the baby's soft breathing. Sarah's hands trembled as she reached out. "Let me hold her," she choked out. Doctor Carter hesitated. "Sarah, we don't know what—" "I don't care," Sarah snapped. "She's my baby." The nurse reluctantly placed the child in Sarah's arms. The moment Sarah touched her, the baby let out a strange coo, a sound that didn't belong to this world. But something deep in Sarah's soul shifted. This was her child. No matter what she looked like, no matter what she was, tears welled in her eyes. "She's beautiful," she whispered. Mark was silent, his face pale. He hadn't even moved. He just kept staring at their newborn, as if he were afraid of her. Doctor Carter took a deep breath. "Sarah, we need to run tests. This isn't normal. Your pregnancy wasn't normal." Sarah clutched her baby protectively. "She's not a disease. She's my daughter." Dr. Carter hesitated before nodding. "I understand. But we still need to figure out what she is." Sarah looked down at her child, at those impossibly black eyes staring back at her. A shiver ran down her spine. Deep down, She knew Dr. Carter was right, because no human baby was born like this, and no human baby should have been able to smile like that. So soon, a smile filled with tiny, razor-sharp teeth. The hospital room felt colder than before. Sarah's grip on her newborn tightened as she stared into those inky black eyes, her heart hammering. No baby should have been able to smile like that, especially not a newborn. Mark had gone deathly still. His fingers dug into his knees as he sat on the edge of Sarah's bed, his eyes locked onto their daughter. "Sarah, that's not a baby," he whispered. Sarah snapped her head toward him, rage bubbling beneath her exhaustion. "Don't say that." But the words sounded hollow even to herself. Doctor Carter hesitated before speaking. "Sarah, we need to check her vitals. We need to understand what she is." The baby let out another strange sound, not a cry, not a coo, but something in between, something that made the hairs on Sarah's arms rise. "Her name is Lily," Sarah said suddenly. Doctor Carter flinched but nodded. "Okay, but please, let us take her for a few tests, just to make sure she's healthy." Sarah looked down at her daughter. Those black eyes were locked onto hers, unblinking, almost like she was listening. The baby was too quiet, too aware. Finally, she swallowed hard and nodded. "Fine, but only for a few minutes." The nurse stepped forward, cautiously reaching for Lily. The moment Lily left Sarah's arms, a strange pressure filled the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm. And then it happened. The hospital lights flickered. The heart monitors in the room spiked wildly before crashing to flat lines. Alarm screamed. A tray of medical tools suddenly slammed onto the floor without being touched. And in the middle of it all, Lily let out a sound, a shrill, unnatural noise that made everyone freeze. Sarah's breath hitched. "Give her back." The nurse, visibly shaking, rushed to place Lily back in Sarah's arms. The moment Sarah touched her, the chaos stopped. The lights steadied. The machines returned to normal. The air felt lighter. Dead silence filled the room. Dr. Carter was the first to speak. That wasn't a coincidence. Mark stood up so fast his chair clattered to the ground. "Sarah, we have to leave. Now." Sarah shook her head. "She's my baby. I'm not going anywhere without her." Mark's voice was shaking. "That's not just your baby. We don't even know if she's human." Sarah's grip on Lily tightened. "She's mine, and I don't care what she is. She's my daughter." Dr. Carter took a step back, her face unreadable. "Sarah, you don't understand. Whatever is happening here, it's not natural. We need to run tests before we lose control of the situation." Sarah's chest heaved. Lose control? She's a newborn. But deep down, a sliver of fear crept into her mind, because no normal newborn could shut down an entire hospital room just by leaving her mother's arms, and no normal newborn should have been staring at Sarah like she understood every single word. The hospital staff didn't know what to do. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, like everyone in the room was afraid to move. Sarah held Lily close, feeling the rapid beat of her own heart. Her daughter, whatever she was calm. Too calm. Those black eyes never blinked, never wavered. She was watching, waiting. Dr. Carter took a deep breath, rubbing her temples. "Sarah, listen to me. We need to take this seriously." That wasn't normal. Mark ran a shaking hand through his hair. "Sarah, please. We need to go. We can't stay here." Sarah ignored them both. Her daughter was safe in her arms. "She's fine," she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Dr. Carter pressed forward. "Sarah, newborns don't do what she just did." "We need to." A loud crash interrupted her. A nurse near the door collapsed. Her body hit the ground with a sickening thud. The room erupted into chaos. Nurses scrambled to check her pulse. Doctors shouted orders. The monitors flickered again, their screens flashing nonsense symbols before shutting off completely. Lily let out a soft giggle. Sarah froze. Dr. Carter paled. Did she just laugh? The air felt wrong. Thick. Pressurized. Another nurse staggered backward, clutching her head. "I feel dizzy," she whispered before her knees buckled. Mark grabbed Sarah's wrist, his grip tight. "We need to get out of here. Now." Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. Lily wasn't doing this. She couldn't be. Could she? She turned to Dr. Carter, desperation in her voice. "Tell me what's happening." Dr. Carter looked at her with something close to fear. "Sarah, I think your daughter is affecting the people around her." A choked sob escaped from Sarah's throat. No, that's not possible. But deep inside, she knew the truth. It was possible. It was happening right now. Mark grabbed the hospital bag and threw Sarah's coat over her shoulders. "We're leaving." Dr. Carter shook her head. I can't let you take her without. Every light in the hospital shut off. The machines died. And in the sudden, suffocating darkness, a soft, eerie glow began to pulse from Lily's tiny body. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Because her daughter was glowing, a faint blue light flickered beneath her skin, moving through her veins like liquid stardust. And then, in a voice that no newborn should have been able to form, Lily whispered her first word. Mommy. The word mommy sent a chill racing down Sarah's spine. It wasn't the babbling of a newborn. It wasn't a simple reflex. It was deliberate. Mark stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a chair. Tell me I didn't just hear that, he whispered, his voice shaking. Doctor. Carter's hands trembled. Newborns don't talk. Sarah felt paralyzed. Her mind screamed at her to run, to question, to be afraid, but her heart refused. She forced herself to look down at her daughter. Lily's glowing veins pulsed faintly beneath her translucent skin. Her black, bottomless eyes stared into Sarah's, filled with something no infant should have, awareness, and then Lily smiled again. That same unsettling, sharp-toothed grin. The room was still plunged in darkness. Outside the hallway, nurses shouted, machines beeped in protest, and patients moaned in confusion. The hospital had completely lost power. Because of Lily. Sarah swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. Lily, baby, did you say something? Mark's face twisted in horror. Sarah, don't talk to it. Sarah snapped, protective instinct roaring to life. Lily let out a soft giggle, then reached out with her tiny, clawed fingers and touched Sarah's cheek. The moment she did, images flooded Sarah's mind, not thoughts. Memories, but not her memories. She saw another place. A sky that wasn't a sky, deep and endless, swirling with dark clouds and violet lightning. Tall, thin creatures moved in the distance, their bodies shimmering with the same soft blue glow that pulsed beneath Lily's skin. Their voices weren't words, but whispers, dozens of them, murmuring all at once, and then Sarah saw a door. No, not a door. A tear in reality. A hole that led somewhere else. Her breath came in sharp gasps as she snapped back to the hospital room, her body drenched in cold sweat. Lily's tiny fingers still rested against her cheek. Sarah stared down at her daughter in shock. Where are you from? Lily only blinked, as if she understood. Mark grabbed Sarah's arm. We have to leave. Now. But before Sarah could respond, something slammed into the hospital doors from the outside. Bang. Everyone froze. Another loud bang rattled the hinges, shaking the room. It wasn't a person. The force was too strong. Doctor. Carter's face drained of color. What the hell is that? Sarah gripped Lily protectively. The air felt different now, charged with something unnatural. And then, through the tiny window in the hospital door, something moved. Sarah's stomach twisted into knots, because whatever was on the other side of that door was looking for Lily. The pounding on the hospital doors grew more violent. The sound wasn't just loud, it was wrong. Like something huge and unnatural was trying to force its way in. Mark was already backing toward the window. Sarah, we need to go. Now. Dr. Carter's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't think we can. Sarah turned to the door, hard hammering. Through the narrow window, a shape shifted in the darkness. It wasn't human. A tall, spindly silhouette loomed on the other side. The fluorescent hallway lights flickered, revealing glimpses of its unnatural form. Its limbs were too long, its fingers too sharp, and its eyes. Sarah sucked in a breath. Its eyes were just like Lily's, completely black. It was here for her. A chilling whisper snaked through the air, crawling down Sarah's spine. It wasn't a voice. It was inside her head. Give her back. Sarah's arms tightened around Lily. No, she whispered. The thing lurched forward. The door shook violently, hinges groaning. The handle began to turn on its own. Mark grabbed Sarah's wrist. We need to run. Now. But Lily suddenly lifted her tiny hand. Sarah felt it before she saw it. A surge of power. The lights exploded. Sparks rained down as the room plunged into pitch-black darkness. A low, guttural screech ripped through the hallway. The sound so inhuman it made Sarah's blood turn to ice. The door flew open, and Sarah finally saw it. The creature stood 7 feet tall. Its skin was pale and stretched too tight over its bones. Its mouth was jagged, filled with rows of needle-like teeth. It took a step forward, and the floor creaked beneath its weight. Doctor. Carter couldn't move. Mark was frozen in horror, but Lily was staring right at it. And she wasn't afraid. Sarah felt a sharp pull in her chest, like something tethered her to Lily. And then, Lily let out a soft, breathy coo. The creature flinched. It took a step back. Sarah barely breathed. Her newborn baby had just terrified a monster. Lily's tiny fingers curled, and suddenly, the creature let out a horrible shriek. Its body contorted violently, like something was pulling it apart from the inside. Mark grabbed Sarah's hand. "We have to go. Now." Sarah turned and ran. Behind them, the creature let out one final, ear-splitting scream before the door slammed shut. The hallways were in chaos, nurses and patients stumbling in the dark, alarms wailing uselessly. But Sarah didn't stop. She clutched Lily against her chest and ran for her life, because she finally understood. Lily wasn't just different. She was something else entirely, and whatever had just come for her wasn't the last one. Sarah's heart pounded as she sprinted through the darkened hospital corridors, Mark close behind her. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Doctor Carter's voice rang out from behind them. "Wait. We can't just—" Sarah didn't stop. She couldn't. Not when something unnatural had just tried to take Lily, her baby. Lily was silent in her arms, her tiny body warm against Sarah's chest. But Sarah could feel it, that strange, pulsing energy radiating from her daughter's skin. Mark was gasping for breath as he caught up. Where are we even going? Sarah's mind was racing. We need to get out of here. Away from them. Dr. Carter finally caught up, her face pale. Sarah, you don't understand. If she's not human, then we don't know what she's capable of. Sarah whirled around. I don't care what she is. She's mine. Before Dr. Carter could argue, the hallway lights flickered. A deep, unnatural hum vibrated through the floor. Mark's hands clenched into fists. Not again. Sarah's blood ran cold. She turned toward the end of the hallway. The shadows moved. A second creature emerged from the darkness. This one was different, taller. Smarter. It didn't lunge. It watched. Its black, endless eyes locked onto Lily. And then, without moving its lips, the whisper crawled into Sarah's mind. She does not belong to you. Sarah's breath hitched. She's my daughter. The creature's head tilted. Its voice was like a chorus of echoes, vibrating in her skull. She is ours. Lily shifted in Sarah's arms. Then, for the first time since she was born, she let out a sharp, piercing cry. The entire building trembled. Glass shattered. Monitors exploded into sparks, and Sarah felt something inside her break. Her knees buckled. Her mind flooded with visions, the sky filled with swirling violet storms. Creatures moving in the shadows, whispering, watching. A massive, glowing rift in space, pulling reality apart, and Lily, floating in the center of it all, surrounded by them. Sarah gasped, snapping back to the present. She was still in the hospital, still clutching Lily, but something was different. Lily wasn't crying anymore. She was glowing, brighter than before. The creature took a slow step forward. Reaching, Mark grabbed Sarah's hand. We have to go. But Sarah knew. She couldn't run anymore. She had to fight, because Lily wasn't just their daughter. She was something more, something the world wasn't ready for. And if Sarah didn't stop them now, they were going to take her away, forever. The hospital walls trembled as Lily's glow intensified, illuminating the corridor with an eerie blue light. The air was thick, charged with something unnatural. The creature standing before them didn't move, but Sarah could feel its intent like a knife to her chest. It wasn't here to talk anymore. It was here to take Lily. She belongs to us. The voice slithered into Sarah's mind, but this time, she didn't flinch. Lily was hers, and she wasn't going to let them take her. Like hell she does, Sarah snarled, shifting Lily in her arms. The creature stepped forward, its long, skeletal fingers twitching. The hospital lights flickered again, and for a split second, Sarah saw them. Not just one. Not two. Dozens. Lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. Mark saw them too. Jesus Christ, he whispered. His grip on Sarah's arm tightened. Dr. Carter's face was frozen in horror. Sarah, what are you doing? Sarah didn't answer, because Lily wasn't afraid. Sarah looked down at her daughter, and something inside her clicked. Lily wasn't running. She was waiting for Sarah to understand. She is not yours. The creatures whispered as one. Sarah took a deep breath. Then, softly, she pressed her lips to Lily's forehead and whispered, show them who you are. Lily's tiny fingers curled. And then, the entire world exploded with light. A pulse of energy erupted from Lily's small body, so powerful it knocked Sarah off her feet. The creatures screamed. Their shadows unraveled. The hospital shook. Walls cracked, lights shattered, and the air hummed with something ancient. Sarah couldn't move. She could only watch as Lily floated, suspended in the air, her small body wrapped in a soft, pulsing glow. Her black eyes changed, flickered, shifted into something new. Something human. The creatures hissed, their forms fading. This is not over. Their whispers slithered through the air one last time before they were ripped apart. Then silence. The hospital stopped shaking, the lights flickered back to life, and Lily, her glow fading, gently floated back down into Sarah's waiting arms. Mark exhaled sharply. Jesus! What just happened? Dr. Carter collapsed against the wall, eyes wide, hands shaking. Sarah held Lily close, breathing hard. She pressed her forehead against her daughter's soft, warm skin. Lily cooed, nuzzling into her chest, and Sarah knew they weren't coming back. They had tried to take her, and they had failed, because Lily wasn't one of them, not anymore. She was hers. And nothing in this world, or any other, was going to take her away again. The end.